According to the Eruv of the Rebbe, to make a kינוס תורה on איסרו חג, also today בהשגחה פרוטיס, the סיום הרמב"ם, the סיום ספר אהבה and תחילת ספר זמנים is tomorrow, so tonight is already part of it. So what we'll do is, the kינוס תורה will start before right now, and right after תחילת אהבה there will be a סיום. After the סיום there will be a verbringen. But to start this kינוס תורה, we'll start first with the a few kapitel of Tehillim in honor of the Eden in Israel and the Master in the entire world. So we'll say kapitel Chov, kapitel Kuf Chov Bey, Kuf Chov Gimel, and kapitel Kuf Nun. Everybody please, and give the Zok Oichet. Lam Natzed.
Lam Natzed.
שיר אמר לסדר ונוסוס לסנה ישבי בשמיים, הנה כהנה עבודים על יד אז עיניהם, כהנה שפחו על יד גבירתו, כהנה עינינו אל עדינו אלינו על שכוננו, חוננו עד מלכוננו כרב סבולנו בוז, הבא סבולנו נפשנו על להג השננים, הבוז רגעיינים, כפיל כופלום. We have the honor today to Achoshev in German, Harab, Achosid, Rab Avi Ashkenazi, will please come and give you some insights into for the כינוס תורה. הרב אשכנזי, בבקשה. And don't forget, after my review, there will be the סיום. Huh? No, sichas now, start now. Yeah.
Das ist Fall da.
Okay, so no, I'm gonna say good morning. So I saw a word. This Shabbos is going to begin the first parak. It says, "Ahiva se malacha snas rabot." So once a word that it says that the malacha of being me'ayin in a certain sugya and learn all the shakavitarya and all the details of a certain halacha, a certain gemara, etc. So that part you should love. When it comes to the Rabbanos, when it comes to making sure that people do the right thing, you should hate that. It shouldn't be something that you like doing. So, for today, I prepared some ha'aras, benegea, inyanim that happen in a shul, and some things that are done here or in other shuls in Mונטריאול. As someone who comes from out of town, sometimes it's a good thing because you get to see no minhagim or no minhagis that people have, but sometimes also you see that people might be doing things differently than what perhaps what I came from, and I have to see what's the correct way. So some how to talk about in the next couple minutes. So some of the things that we're going to discuss is negea to every single time we have Kirsatera, so Monday, Thursday, Shabbos, and Chol. Some things are going to be negea at every Rosh Chodesh and Chol Hamoed, and some things are more negea on every Yom Tov when he's Dubikas Kehanim as we're going to see. So number one, so I've seen that by Hagbe, so that happens every time we have Kirsateras, many times the person who does Hagbe, he's not yet to, he takes the gatl and he kisses the places, etc., and then he rolls first to the tefillah, to where we had the stitching of the Sefer Torah. First he rolls to that to make sure that it's in the middle, and only afterwards he lifts and then he shows to the kahal. And then he sits down and he puts the Sefer Torah down and he's goyel and he sits down. So where did this come from? This it says in the Gemara and Megillah, the Lashon is as follows. It says, "A goyel Sefer Torah tzaddik shemiden al atefet." That a person, when you roll the Sefer Torah, you have to make sure that you leave it by the stitching area. And it's brought up in Rambam, we learned a few weeks ago. It's brought up in Tosha, Kanal, Simon, Kufan, Zayin. And then unfortunately explain the reason why is it that we do so. And the main reason is because sometimes the Sefer Torah can be mishandled, or they were tight the Sefer Torah very strongly, so there's a chash that it might rip in the middle of the amud of the ksav, so we make sure if we want to be close, we make sure that it's still on the tefillah, so if in case something happens, it would rip on the tefillah, it won't rip on the oasis. That's the main reason, so that's why we do so. The question is, at what stage during Hagbe is a person supposed to do so? So, if you look in Shai Ephraim, So famous Sefer Benegiyah, etc. So in the last Shah Shayud he brings there, and he's lashing there. It's a Hamadbiyah Sefer Torah Tzarich Ledaktik Lamid. He's talking about the Madbiyah, and he goes on to explain that Achshav in Medaktin Kol Kach Bazeh, Mokim Mishlachmin Bazeh Gam Achshav. He goes a little bit of what the minhag is the koil, but he sounds that he's saying that the person who has to do so is the Madbiyah, and it's mashma also from there that it has to be done before the Hagbeh. So meaning when a person is going to lift up the Sefer Torah, he has to first roll it to the Tefillah, then you lift it up, and then you show to the Kahal. So that's what's mashma from there. But on the other hand, we can explain that when he says a Madbiyah, it could mean that it's actually the Goyla. As we know, I mean, a lot of people know this, that the Maisa, our minhag is that the person who does Hagbeh, he's actually also the Goyla. Meaning, we lift up the Sefer Torah, we put it back on the bima, and then you roll it, and then you put it back on your chest or whatever, then you sit down, and then you have another person who, customarily we call it he's the Goyla, but he's only actually just putting the map on the Sefer Torah, he's putting the gartel on the mappa. But actually the person who lifted up the Sefer Torah, he was the one who did Hagbeh, and he's the one who did the Goyla. Now in other communities they have a different custom, and that the person who does Hagbeh, he lifts up the Sefer Torah, he doesn't put it back on the bima, he sits down with the Sefer Torah open, and then either him is the one who now is Goyal, or someone else comes and Goyal the Sefer Torah from the top. Like it says in the Rambam that we went recently, a few weeks ago, it's the same part. So to the extent, just to mention that if you look in the Ramah, he says in Shulchan Aruch, he brings this idea that there's two minhagim in this, that there's a different halacha that the Rama also spoke about. The Mechaber brings Shulchan Aruch, Hagel Sefer Torah, Goyel Mebachutz, Ukshehu Mehadke Mebifnim. That the idea is that you have to Goyel Mebachutz. Nowadays the mice is that you just start with the gartel on the outside, and you make sure that the tefillah of the gartel is on the front. So the next time you're going to open up Sefer Torah, you have to make sure that the front or when it's back. There are brings the Chol Zeh Ma'idi Keshecha Deisa Kol HaGlila, that this whole thing that the Mechaber speaks about is talking about in the olden days when the person who does Hagbeh, he's the one who does Gila. So it's a little different. So that's actually the way we do our minhag, as it says in Sefer Minhagim, page 15, the Seder Dvarim Benegiyah Hagbeh, it says as follows: V'Hiyah Sefer Torah L'Achar Yishemar Yitzchak Chayzer Manicha Al Bima. As supposed to develop, they sit down right away. Our minhag is that we put the Sefer Torah down first. The Goylal be'atzmain, he's the one who does Hagbeh, he's the one who does Goylal. And then and then afterwards he sits on the bed. Now we have actually a couch, and he sits, and then either him or someone else is good at the map, etc. So that's the class. So we had two main minhagim, as I said, to do Hagbeh, to sit down, and someone else does the actual glila. So in that case, it would be he's the one who was to roll to the tefillah, meaning the halacha that we mentioned in the beginning, that you have to make sure that it's good to the tefillah. So according to those who have the minhag, that there's one person who does Hagbeh, and then someone else who does glila. So with loshen goyla, it would make sense that there's a second person who's coming to now roll the Sefer Torah right before you put the map on. So he has to make sure that when he's going to the tefillah. According to a minhag, you can say that perhaps if it's anyways going to the person who's doing Hagbeh, so the question is, does he do before or after he lifts up the Sefer Torah? Does he have to roll it to the tefillah before he lifts up the Sefer Torah, or does he do first he lifts up the Sefer Torah and then put it down, and then he looks for this tefillah and then find it and then close it and then sit down? So there's different ways to explain the Shari Ephraim, but just before we go into what other people have to say about this, I just want to highlight one detail. When you get this discussion about what the Lashon Glila is, this whole discussion also when you get minhag on Shabbos afternoon, every time mincha, it says in Sefer Minhagim, the Lashon is as follows: Minhagim le'achilei merchatzi kaddish korei l'sefer Glila. As we know that Chazan by mincha Shabbos we only say one kaddish. We don't say kaddish after Kriyas Torah. We only say kaddish before the Amidah. So in Sefer Minhagim it says that you have to do everything slowly. So you start saying the kaddish slowly. The Lashon is korei l'sefer Glila. So there's whole discussion. If here the Lashon is korei l'sefer Glila, if it means what we call glila, so what most shows actually do, the Chazan starts saying kaddish when the person is putting the gartel up around the Sefer Torah. Or some people want to say that it actually means kaddish Sefer Glila, when the person who does Hagbeh, when he's rolling the Sefer Torah, that's kaddish Sefer Glila, he's the one glila. Some people want to say like that, but the Pashtus, that's not what's mashma. And the Maaseh, like I said, in most shows they actually do the first way, which is when the person who's doing what we call the glila, and he's putting on the gartel. That's what, in most cases, the Chazan starts the kaddish slowly. So Lemaisa, even though in the Shari Ephraim, you could say that it's supposed to be done, the tefillah before you lift up the Torah. Lemaisa, if you look in the Hamshach and the Gemara there in the Sugya and also Shulchan Aruch, it's mashma. Otherwise, it's mashma that the tefillah, the minhag of the halacha of making sure that it's in tefillah is done after Hagbeh. And so it's brought down by Ferush in Shulchan Aruch. He brings the Siddur Advarim. He also says that the tefillah you do after you do Hagbeh, and the Kaf HaChaim also brings this way. It's also Shulchan. He also brings this way. It's also mashma from Aruch HaShulchan. Many other Chreinim that the inyan here to do the tefillah is to be done after Hagbeh. And the might say even though there's we have most poskim saying this way and some poskim say the other way, and the might say in Sefer Menhagim on page 15, which was just mentioned, so it's also it's very much muchrach that it's supposed to be done this way, because it says Menhagenu Magbiya Sefer Torah Leachar Shemar Yisrael Kahal Choizen Manicha Labimo Vegil Beatzmei Ve'az Yeshiv Al Safsa Ve'achar Kechama. He brings the whole Siddur Advarim. And then at the end, he adds, "Medai kim niglo l'sefer Torah neged hatefer, shemokim hatefer yeh be'entza sefer Torah b'chutz." It's also mashma that it should be done this way. The sikum that the person who does hagbeh, he should do the kissing, whatever he has to do, lift up the sefer Torah, show to the kahal, and only after he puts it down, that's when he rolls it to the tefillah, and then he sits down and let the guy do his job. Now, if you look in just the Lahayid and Lulach Kelel Chabad, in one of the oldest editions, I think maybe 20 years ago, or maybe a little even 15 to 20 years ago. So in the beginning, the first day of Rosh Hashanah, if you look at Tishrei, especially if you look at the big luachs, you see that Tishrei has a long list of minhagim. Of course, most of them is minhagim, the Yom Nerayim and Sukkot, etc. But there's a lot of minhagim that appears there because it's just the first time that it appears in the calendar. So there's like a minhagim of Hagbeh, etc. So he brings there on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which is the first time of the year that we have Kriyas Torah. So in the old ones, they actually write like the Shari Ephraim. He says Magbias Sefer Torah, and then in parentheses he adds Achri Shemido Keneged Hatefer Shari Ephraim. So he says there, at least in the old editions, that you should roll it to the tefillah before you lift up the Sefer Torah. In the new ones, they switched the lashon and they wrote as we were saying that it's mashma Sefer Menhagim, that the mokim atfila should be done before. After you do hagbeh, after you put the Sefer Torah down in the bin. So just a few more nekudas when they get this. The lemaise why is it that we, according to everything that we said, why is it that we first lift up the Sefer Torah and only afterwards we make sure to roll it to the tefillah? If at the end of the day there's a chashash also that when a person is doing hagbeh, there could be that you could rip, and the same chashash that happens when the Sefer Torah is closed, we should technically have when the Sefer Torah is open, and even more so when the Sefer Torah is closed. What's the chance that it's gonna rip? It's already closed. Some of the want to say that when they would close very strong, they would be mehadek, but we don't do that nowadays, and especially hagbeh has more of a chance of ripping the Sefer Torah when a person is lifting. So why is it that the take we don't do that way? And also tzarich a little bit of if the Sefer Torah in nowadays, if the way Sefer Torah is done, if it's a little stronger than it used to be in the olden days. You've seen when you have to roll the Sefer Torah from pasha to pasha, you can hold it very strong and nothing happens. So it's done in a way that's very strong. So we have to go back in time to see if the Sefer Torah back in the day was done in a different way. Nowadays we do them much stronger. So one more, they could have been against this. That there's a different inyan that's brought down that when a person does hagbeh, ideally there's the few minhagim, but ideally when he lifts up the Sefer Torah, he should show to the kahal the parsha that we just read from the Torah. So you just finished a certain kriya, and you do hagbeh, you show everybody what you read from, and then you put it down. So it would also make sense, according to what we're saying, that first you lift up the Sefer Torah, then you put it down, then you look for a tefillah, because sometimes the tefillah is not even close to what we just read, and if you're going to roll it for the tefillah before you lift up the Sefer Torah, it's going to end up being the one, once you lift up to show the gal, you're not even showing the section in the Torah that we just read. So that's another inyan. It's brought down. There's many minhagim. If it's definitely not me'akiv, but lechatchila, a person should in fact, as a separate minhag, to show the kahal the kriya that we just read. The Shari Ephraim also brings this, and he says that And the person should do that, and the reason that he brings is basically because it's Terech HaTzibur, if you're going to start rolling the Sefer Torah before you do Hagbeh, and also he brings that if it's Shas HaTorech, let's say that the person who does Hagbeh, or let's say it's either Bereshis or there's a bracha, and the Sefer Torah is very heavy on one side for somebody to lift up, so you want to roll it a little bit or even a lot to make sure that it's more even before you do Hagbeh. So and they said in those cases you could rely on that when you lift up the Sefer Torah, you're not going to be showing the Ksav to the Olam anymore. Now just to add, before we go on to the next topic, is that
you have to show them the whole, everything be read or just a little?
No, so let's talk about. So some people say that you should show where you left off, the end of the parsha. Some people say, and for Sfardim, that they lift up the Sefer Torah before the Kriya, it's the beginning of the parsha, of course. And this whole union of lifting up the Sefer Torah after Kriya, which is what we do against the minhag of the Sfardim, doesn't really make so much sense. We put the Torah, we read 7 years, and then we lift up a Zois HaTorah. This is the Torah. For the Sfardim, it makes more sense. Al Pi Pshat. You first show everybody what the Torah is about, and you say Zois HaTorah, and then you read from the Torah. So the Maaseh most hold that you should just show the what you just read. You don't have to go back to the beginning. Some people want to say that you should also, even according to us, you should roll back to the Reisha Parsha. So if it's a long Parsha, you will have to sometimes go back a few columns. And then you have a discussion. Some people say that it's, even though we have this minhag, it's better to actually roll it to the tefillah. It's better to roll it to the tefillah than to show the parsha that you just read. But as we said, the l'chera is not. It shouldn't be a minhag. Or minhag should be to roll to the tefillah only after you do the hagbah. And then some people want to say that you should be mishtadel to do all 3 minhagim. What are the 3 minhagim? That it should be connected the tefillah. And also 3 amudim. We know that our minhag is that when we lift up the Sefer Torah, we have to show 3 amudim. So I guess here would say al-chalapach is 3 amudim, and then also the minhag of showing the mafim shekaro. So sometimes you have to open, I guess, more than 3 amudim to make sure that you have at least 3 amudim. It's also the parsha that you read, and sometimes you have to find a tefillah. The tefillah not always is aligned with the parsha that you just read. Okay, so that's when I get that. Another topic that I noticed last year and this year more, specifically Benegir Chalamayit. So there's no chiddush on what everything I'm going to say. Everything is printed out already. It's funny, but just to be me'ir do'ilam about this, that I don't think people are aware. So Bichlad, there's 2 main minhagim in regards to when to return Sefer Torah. And every davening, every Monday, Thursday, etc. If it's done right after the Kriya, that's the minhag Ashkenaz b'derech klal. Or if we wait till after Ashri and then we return Sefer Torah, that's the minhag Sfarad b'derech klal. That's also a minhag Chabad. It's pradam that every Monday and Thursday we don't return our Sefer Torah right after Kriya. We wait till after Ashri and that's when we bring Sefer Torah back to the Arim Kodesh. The Shara Kodesh, he speaks about this Barucha. He brings the reasons behind this minhag, etc. And recently there was a discussion Benegir Purim. It's brought down in a few places if you return the Sefer Torah before or after Kriyas HaMegillah. We have from the Rebbe some things about this, and 770 was done in different years. It was done in different ways, but just in Kamikab for now. So that's the halacha. So our minhag is that we return the Sefer Torah after Ashiv Aletziyah. So when it comes to Rish Chodesh, as many know, so it says in halacha that we have to remove the tefillin before Musaf. Now, because we also have Rabbeinu Tam, and we do right then, it says in Sefer Minhagim that all the tefillin that a person puts on, he should put right after taking off Rashi before Musaf. So we put on a Rabbeinu Tam, so it's brought down because it's a great hefsek. Taking off the tefillin is not such a big hefsek. For those people who don't put Rabbeinu Tam, technically they just remove the Rashi and then they continue with Musaf right away. But for us, that we have to put on a Rabbeinu Tam. Putting on a Rabbeinu Tam is already a hefsek, and also you have to say K'tishma, and all the parshas are in time. There's also another hefsek. So the Maaseh, because it's a great hefsek, so we don't say the Kaddish now by Uval Etzion, and we just wait till after we finish the Dam and before Musaf like everyone else. Just another Ha'ara Be'alma to mention here, the Benegir Sheish Stidas is also a discussion. If Sheish Stidas on Rosh Chodesh, a person should say now with Rabbeinu Tam or wait till the end of the davening. So if you think about it, that our minhag would be that we have to put Rabbeinu Tam after Musaf. Let's say we just take off a tefillin of Rashi, and it takes a few seconds to take off the tefillin, and you finish Ashri, you finish Volitzion. The minhag should be that the Chazan says Ashri normally, and the Volitzion, Sefer Torah is still sitting by the bima, and then after the Chazan finishes all Volitzion, everybody removes the tefillin, we put the Sefer Torah back to the Aron Kodesh, he says Chatzi Kaddish, and we begin Musaf. That's what the minhag should be. And just the vort is that because we have Rabbeinu Tam, so we have the whole struggle of Dara what to do, because we don't want to add in Kaddish. Just also kind of mocking the Hasket that not many people know this also. Just also Mamira Musgar that Chazin, Musaf, our minhag is that he's starting Kaddish after a long time, so it's brought down that he should say a few psukim out loud. He should say a kapitel Tehillim, it's brought down the Lechatchila, he should say a whole kapitel Tehillim and say the last psukim or the last pasuk at least out loud, and then you should start Kaddish, because Kaddish is not said stamazoi in the middle of nowhere, like you just finished all the tune, you didn't even finish out loud, and you did a whole half second, you just start saying Kaddish. The minhag is that you should say, it's brought down in Peskim, and the Rebbe speaks about it also, that you should say a kapitel Tehillim and say recite the last psukim out loud, and then you start Kaddish. And Bepashas, the same should be done also in shuls every Shabbos, where they have the minhag of giving a drasha right before Musaf, after Ashri, and after they put the Sefer Torah back to the Aron, and then the Rabbi gives a beautiful drasha, and then the Chazan starts right away Kaddish. So if the drasha included Divrei Torah Enoch Hinami, but if the drasha finished with a story or Mirsad de B'chusas, so the Shliach Tzibur should say a kapitel. You can say Hallelujah, I guess it doesn't have to be the Kufyutes, but you should say out loud, and then you say Kaddish. So back to the Seder Advarim. So in fact, if you look in the Seder Al-Rebbe, he writes there, right after Halel, and the Rebbe brings a few paragraphs when he what the Seder Advarim is in davening. So he says there, "Mitzim Sefer Torah v'kunim b'rishchoder v'chlamid etc. v'chulu v'chakach emrim Ashri u'volitzin goyel u'machnisim Sefer Torah leheichol v'chakach emrim shliach tzibur chatzi kaddish v'mispalim tefillas musaf." Then he adds, "Mesirim atfilim b'rishchodesh koydim kaddish." So it would make sense, as we said, that if we didn't put on Rabbeinu Tam right away, if we leave to do it after musaf, it would make sense that you wouldn't put the Sefer Torah right away back into the Aron. And in fact, that was the minhag in 770 up until Tismach, even on Rosh Chodesh, even with our minhag to put Rabbeinu Tam, is that they would not put the Sefer Torah back right away. They would sit down, and the Chazan would finish Ashrei, Volitzion, I don't know if it fell out or not, but then only afterwards they would put the Sefer Torah back, you finish your Rabbeinu Tam, and then you start Musa with the Kaddish. What happened was, in Tismach, the Rebbe started having a minhag in his house, in his home, and for some reason on Rosh Chodesh, the minhag became that the Sefer Torah was returned to the Aron right after Glila, right after the finishing of covering the Sefer Torah. The Chazan was already Ashri or not, the Sefer Torah was brought up right away, and that became sort of a minhag Chabad. And in every shul, in Rosh Chodesh, everybody knows, everybody's rushing the person who did the Hag, they bring the Sefer Torah to the Aron. And there's also another independent shmua that says that one time, I don't know if it was Tismach or later or before, but one time the Chazan finished off of Volitzion out loud. He said Yad Torah v'Yadin, and the Rebbe told him, instructed him to say Kaddish right away. So I don't know if it meant to say Kaddish right away and start Musaf, I don't know if people had tefillin or not, but that's what's brought down. So people use these two, this shmua and also the minhag that started in Tismach, to say, from this was in Spashit the minhag, that on Rosh Chodesh, so as we said, every time right after the Glila, we bring the Sefer Torah back to the Aron. So that's, and also the minhag that the Chazan says Volitzion quietly, he doesn't say out loud. So on all this, we have to this tzarich why we take our leheg like this on Rosh Chodesh, and a few other nekudas just to mention that it's not so muchrach in halacha. Derech agav, that if the Chazan ends off Volitzion out loud, that he has to say Kaddish right away. It's not so muchrach, it's not so clear what the shmua that we heard from the Rebbe, that he should say Kaddish right away. If it was for this reason or a different reason, there's really no reason to say that because a person said Yad Torah v'Yadin out loud, it means that he has to say Kaddish right now. You could say that Lav Davka, and if your minhag is to put Rabbeinu Tam now, you have time to put Rabbeinu Tam, and then you say the Kaddish before Musaf later on. Also, what happens on Rosh Chodesh is that people start removing the tefillin because Sefer Torah was back to the Aron, and there's a different halacha that also not too many people know, and there's different details about this, that you're not supposed to be choletz tefillin, you're not supposed to remove the tefillin when the Sefer Torah is out of the Aron Kodesh. But regardless, many people at the minute, that as soon as the Sefer Torah is back to the Aron, they're still saying Ashri Volitzion, and they're already removing the tefillin shel Ashri, and it's brought down in many places that we hear in the Chlal, that l'chol hapoches, the tefillin shirashi, the person should not remove until the last kadeshim, etc. But the minimum should be that until after volitzin, you shouldn't remove your tefillin shirashi. So what comes from this minhag is that at the end of the day, people are removing. They want to make sure that they're up to musaf. When the chazan says musaf, they already removing the tefillin shirashi very very fast, and they don't end up saying volitzin with tefillin bichlal, tefillin shirashi. And not only that, if you look into this whole discussion about Seder Advarim, and also the idea of saying Mizmori Tehillim that we mentioned, that the Chazan should say some psukim Tehillim before the Kaddish of Chatzi Kaddish from Musaf. We have also the Shimur from the Fidik Rebbe. He writes B'Shem the Rebbe Rashav, Fiminani Benegeh this, and Bin Advarim he says exactly this. Umizmor do volitzir cholu tzrichim. He says clearly that we're not wanting, just bringing some other ideas, but the mindset we see that there's definitely an union to say uvolitzin with the tefillin. So that's been a gerish chedesh. Now, when it comes to Chol HaMoed, there's technically no reason to say that we should bring the Sefer Torah right away back to the Aron. It would be the same as Rish Chodesh if you didn't do Rabbeinu Tam, as we were saying. We don't wear tefillin on Chol HaMoed, and you say Kaddish after the Kriya. And Pesach we have 2 Sefer Torahs, Sukkot we have 1 Sefer Torah, it's sitting here. And then technically there's no reason why we shouldn't say that the Chazan, the Sefer Torah should be sitting by the Bima. The Chazan should say Ashri slowly, finish Ashri, and then start a Volitzin, finish a Volitzin, say Yehalelu, bring the Sefer Torahs to the and say Chatzi Kaddish and start Musaf. And Lepoyel I've seen in many shuls they don't do that. They do the same in Haggadah Kodesh, bring the Sefer Torah close quickly to the on Kodesh. For all reason I'm yet to find, but the pashtus, I mean, this that we have already, this minhag b'Rish Chodesh is definitely l'chayra. It's ein bayal chidushay, and there's no reason to say that it would apply also to Chol HaMoed. With that exception. Just some other quick nekudas b'negia when we have 2 Sefer Torahs, because we're coming from Chol HaMoed Pesach, so. I'm not going to go into detail, but just to highlight some of the Minhagim and halachas. So number one is that some people think that the whole idea of placing the second Sefer Torah on the Bima after you finish reading the first Sefer Torah. Some people say you don't have to do it. You can do Hagbe on the first Sefer Torah, and then you can bring the Sefer Torah, especially when there's no Kaddish. So Chol HaMoed Pesach, the Kaddish is only said after the second Sefer Torah. We put the second Sefer Torah, we do Hagbe on the first, and then we do the Kriya on the second Sefer Torah, and then we have Kaddish. The same also happens when we have 3 Sefer Torahs. So either Shabbos Shkolim, that's Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos HaChodesh, Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos Chanukah, that's Rosh Chodesh. So we have 3 Sefer Torahs, so you end up bringing the second Sefer Torah for Shishi before you say Kaddish. Only between the second and the first Sefer Torah there's Kaddish to separate between the 7 Aliyahs and Maftir. So some people think that the whole inyan of bringing the second Sefer Torah to the Bima before the Haggadah, the first Sefer Torah, is only when there's a Kaddish. Because we say Kaddish for the first Sefer Torah. So that's not true. There's 2 different halachas. There's one halacha that's brought down that you have to put the second Sefer Torah next to the first Sefer Torah regardless. And there's another halacha that says that you should do so before Kaddish. So when Kaddish, you say you should go on both Sefer Torahs. That's a separate part, which some people also confuse, that they think that when you have 3 Sefer Torahs, you have to bring the first Sefer Torah back to the Bima to have 3 Sefer Torahs to say Kaddish. It's also not mainstream halacha. And 2 more quick points is that in Pesachim it's brought down that when you put the second Sefer Torah, you should put it on the left side of the Bima because it should be closer to the Balkira. But there's a Shmuah that the Rebbe said, or I think it was from the Rebbe, maybe from the Rebbe, or the minhag in 770 is to put on the right side, and that's what we do in Chabad Shul, to put on the right side. And then another important halacha that many people forget is that, especially Chol HaMoed, Yom Tov, anytime we have more than 1 Sefer Torah, you're not supposed to open the next Sefer Torah until the first one is fully closed. It's in the footage, the halacha, sometimes people forget. Okay. Next nakuda. So there's a B'negia B'rchas Kehanim. There's a discussion in Pesachim if the words Am Kedishecha Ka'amor, we know that the Chazan, when we don't have B'rchas Kehanim, the Chazan says the whole Elokeinu, the whole paragraph out loud. And with Yom Tov, he also has to see that paragraph. So and then he says Koyanim, and then he says Am Kedishecha Ka'amor. So there's a discussion in Pesachim if those 3 words are said just by the Chazan, or if it's also said by the Kehanim, and or the call as well. So just before we go into that, just want to mention something that B'derech Agav, that in Pesach Siddur, that Chaim Noah, he brings there that it's mashma from the Loshen Al Tereb and Siddur that the whole paragraph of Elokeinu v'Elokeinu V'Seinu, even on Yom Tov, the Chazan should say the whole thing in the regular tone, and just the words Kohanim he should say a little louder. It doesn't mean that he has to say everything quietly, just to himself, and just the word Kohanim loud. That's what most shuls that I've been, that's what the Chazan does. He doesn't say, you can't hear him say any word, you just hear him saying Kohanim. So he writes that from the Alter Rebbe's Mashal they should say the whole thing in the same volume that you said the whole Chazar Tashatz, because at the end of the day we still have to hear every word from Chazar Tashatz, and this paragraph is part of Chazar Tashatz. And Lamai, the word Kohanim you say a little louder. And when it comes to the halacha that if there's only one Kohen in shul, you're not supposed to say the word Kohanim. What it means, he says, is not that you don't say anything. You say the whole paragraph in a regular tone. So that's what he says. Lamai said, what people are nohig is they only say the word Kohanim out loud, and if there's only one Kohen in shul, they don't say anything out loud, and then the Kohanim they have no idea when to start the bracha or whatever. And but what he wants to say is that no, that the minhag should be that the Chazan says the whole paragraph in a regular voice, and the word Kohanim, if there's more than one Kohen, he says it in a louder voice. That's what he says. So when you get this, what we were talking about before, the words Am Kedeshach HaKamur, the Rama brings Shulchan Aruch v'chayzev v'emer Am Kedeshach HaKamur b'lachash. When you get the Alter Rebbe also brings Shulchan Aruch that it's mashma from the Rama, also the Alter Rebbe, that v'chayzev v'emer it's going on the Chazan. The Chazan has to go back after he says the word Kohanim. The lach is involved with it, so after he says the word Kohanim, he goes back and he says the words Am Kedeshach HaKamur. So it's mashma that it does not apply to the Kohanim and the tzibur as well. So the Mishnah Berurah brings there Bim Koyimai, Haino Shliach Tzibur Umashin Hangi Bezim Koyimis Shakohanim Eimnim Am Kedeshach HaTolsu. So he brings there that in places where the Kohanim have the minhag of saying these words, it's a mistake. And K'tzas HaShulchan also brings about this halacha, and there he speaks about the Kahal, that there's different opinions. Some people have the minhag to see the whole thing together with the Chazan, some people say nothing. But the Mai said, I believe there are in the felt minhagim like this and minhagim like that. But what it's mashma from the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, it's what it says in the Ramah. It's what the Mishnah Berurah is saying, that only the Chazan says this. And if you take a look at the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe also has the same similar lashon. Shemagi l'kehanim b'kol ram kehanim, v'hu kriya l'kehanim, v'achar kach mesayim ve'omer am kedeshach HaKamur. It's also mashma that it only applies to the Shliach Tzibur, that he's the one who has to say these words am kedeshach HaKamur. So. And Eichla Menachem Chilek Gimel, they bring there Yeshua Mancha and Olav Hashem, he brings a shmua from Herschel Fegelstock, Olav Hashem, that he says that on Akhir Shepesach Tavshin Tes, that would be 75 years ago, yesterday, that the Rebbe, this is even before the Nesius, so he says it was after Musaf, before the Suda, before the forbidden of the Tefillah Rebbe, the Rebbe says that based on the lashon of the Alter Rebbe in Siddur, is in fact mashma that only the Shliach Tzibur is the one who says these words, and not the Tzibur, not the Kehanim that he brings there in Eichel Menachem, and it says it the Shimas Rav Yeshua Monchain, and the lashon there is the Shomati from Rav Herschel Feigel Shakol Abashalom. And just interesting to point out that later on in Oitzav and Agi Chabad, we have two halakim. We have a chilek in Tishrei, Elul Tishrei, and then we have a chilek on Nisan Iyar Sivan, and then we have two other works that I believe it was published later. We have one on Purim that's published in one. There's a Megillah says that has then a section of Oitzav and Agi Chabad, and also Tikkun El Shavuos. They have also a section there with Minhagim and Shavuos, and there's some additions that it doesn't appear in the Oitzav and Agi Chabad of Nisan Iyar Sivan. So there, it's interesting that he writes already that it's a Mimichtove. There's a lot of Chassid of Herschel Fegelstock, all of Shalom here now. So it appears at the beginning he just wrote this that he Shamaiti, and then he got a letter from him confirming this shmua that in Tavshin Tes he heard this from the Rebbe that it's mashma from the Lashon of the Rebbe in the Siddur that only the Chazan says this. So it's just an interesting point that the Rebbe says that from the Lashon of the Rebbe the Siddur the Lashon of the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch also mashma the same way. I guess the Rebbe is just saying that the Siddur is what the Mishnah Chrena, the Bepoel what the Rebbe is saying. So Lemaise, what we see from here, the Sikkim Advarim is that not the Kohanim and not the Kal should be saying these words. Now, on the other hand, I did find that the Kivitz they spoke about this, and in one of the early editions of the Kivitz of Ocean Parkway, somebody wants to bring. He writes there that the Lemaise Sharif and the Nash Ebri Magimel Tevis Gamkein, that Lemaise he's seen that in some shuls many of Anash do say these words, and in the ends in parentheses that he also heard that the Rebbe would also have this minhag. So I'm not sure about that, but that's what he brings down. Okay, it was one more topic that unfortunately didn't have the chance to be me'ayin, but it's an interesting halacha that's when they get here. Many times there's chodesh, a minyan starts here at a certain time, and then a second minyan starts on the chodesh sheni, and then once the minyan finishes here, the chodesh sheni comes here. So it happens sometimes that the minyan that it's in chodesh sheni is holding either right before Chazar Shatz or right after Chazar Shatz before Halal. So just wanted to mention, I saw there's a whole discussion in Poskim. We spoke about Kaddish Iskabel. So b'derech klal, Kaddish Iskabel goes on the davening. There's a whole discussion at times in the year that the Kaddish Iskabel is so long after davening. For example, Tisha B'Av, that we say not Tisha B'Av, Purim, that we postpone the Kaddish Iskabel until after Kriyas Megillah. And you know the cases where Kaddish Iskabel is much later after even Chazal Hashatz. So there's a whole discussion if it's a problem or not for a minyan to do Shmona Esrei in a certain place and Chazal Hashatz in a certain place. I'm not even going to talk about moving between the Amidah and Chazal Hashatz. This is a separate question. But a discussion if it's okay to make a half-sek, number one, between Chazal Hashatz and Halal. And even if you finish Halal there, if you finish Halal, you're going to do Kaddish Iskabel, unless it's Chanukah. But if you can move between the Chazal Hashatz and Halal, because at the end of the day, you did Shmona Esrei and Chazal Hashatz in one room, and then you come to a different room, and then you're going to say Halal, and then you're going to say Kaddish Iskabel, and the Kaddish Iskabel that you're saying here is supposed to go on the tefillah that you just did somewhere else. So good person want to compare this to Birchas Hamazon. If it's on the person or on the bracha, then if you sit somewhere to eat, and then you go somewhere else, you can't really bench. You have to go back to the mokim that you ate. So I just wanted to mention this, that there's a discussion in Poskim. The mice, I believe it's not such a big problem. The maskanas of some places that I saw is that it's not such a big deal. I mean, the chatchila definitely better, but even especially if you have a need, especially when there's a small room and you want to have a bigger room, so it's not such a big problem. But it's a good thing to keep in mind, because sometimes this could be again other places where you would just want to do it for no other reason, and the chedi shouldn't be done. As we said, there is someone will say an Indian to say the Kaddish Iskabel after Halal, that it goes on the same place that you said Shmona Esrei Chazal Hashatz. That's for today.
Shkoyach Avi, for so clarifying a lot of the things, and the Rishos will help us all Mamshech Zayin and be able to say your things in a very clear way. After Tfilas Avos there will be a Siyum, Ahaven, Atchila from Zmanim, and everybody's asked to stay. And also, I would like to ask if anybody went into the Halucha, these papers here, fill up your name, your mother's name, the place you went, so we can send it off to the Rebbe. Shkoyach. The Halucha. Rabbi Yossi hat gesagt, dass Sim ist morgen, aber ein paar Sachen, was der Rebbe verklärt, ist sicher, aber der gehört nach Heintag morgen. Ich kann machen, Sim Heintag. Okay? Kibalta? Ich mache nicht, noch gern. Oh, no, there was some... According to the Rebbe, to make a sim after every sefer, we're going to make a sim now, Ahaven and Atchila from Sefer Zmanim. I'd like to ask everybody, please come here by the table. The sim is going to be done right here. We have the honor and the covet to have today Choshev in German, Ish Oisek Betzorch Yitzidru Be'emuneh, הרב החוסיד, הרב סלפόνצניק, is going to make the סיום מן האסכולה. הרב סלפόνצניק, בבקשה.
I guess we start a siyum on with the tefillas.
Yeah.
Even though the last halachas are hilchas milah, but we finish the sefer with the tefillas. The tefillas end off. Where are we over here? Ends off with all the parashas, all the haftarahs, everything. It ends off. Kol Shabbos Yekayim b'Sheifash Mavtim Min Parasha Achrein Avzo Min Ibrahim Mukayim. So Chen Nagret Ha'am. These Mavtim Ben Nacham Tishayav Ben Amos Ma'achat Tisha B'Av. And after Tisha B'Av, even though the haftarahs of the entire year have to do with the parsha, but between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, the haftarahs have to are minion of the Nechamis of Tisha B'Av. before the talks of the Nechamis. Like it says, Mishal Shav Tishu Nachmu Nachmu Ami Alis Yinal Bashniya B'Temetzin Azman Hashem G'ayach Rabbi Yaakov B'Shishas V'Yasayra Kifer V'Viyas Anechenech Menachemcha Mat Shviya B'Siyam V'Chmisha V'Niyakar L'Yolad Ad G'ayach Hashem L'Shizkum Eri Kibayech Ad V'Yitach Shanam V'Shvi Saysasa B'Hashem Ad V'Yinasem Chali B'Ayla B'Richam Fon D'Siyam. So this concludes Sefer Ava. And I'll just share something very small, although the subject is a very large subject, so we'll try to keep it we already heard lots of things tonight. So we concluded now Sefer Ava, which comes right after Sefer Amada. And Sefer Ava started off with the Hilchos Kriya Shema. So we know the famous question of the Rambam. The Rambam asks, how could we speak about the Haftas Shem Lekecha? How could the Eibusher tell us to love him? If we love, you love. If you don't love, you don't love. No one can tell you to love something you don't love. Salamai, what does the Rambam say? Is that when you think about something and you learn about it, you're going to come to appreciate and to love it. So like we say in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. By learning how the Eibusher is one. After you learn the Eibusher is one, then you can have after Hashem Lekecha. So recently I came across a Sikha, which I never heard of before, but now I hear it's relatively well known. It's the first Sikha on Chelach Levav on Shmais. And it speaks over there about Moshe Rabbeinu, that he had, after he had killed the Mitzri, he got punished, so to speak, because he was afraid. Moshe was afraid. And it's a long Sikha where the Rebbe speaks about the idea of bitachon and what do you have bitachon for. So the Rebbe quotes extensively from, obviously, the Cheves Olavavis, the Shara Bitachon. And he writes, the Shara Bitachon writes something very interesting. He says that there's a fundamental difference between the bitachon that we have in Gashmistic thing and Ruchnistic things. In Gashmistic things we know that the Eibusher controls everything 100%, A to Z. The Parnasa, Refuah, everything like that is 100%. We make our clean, but even the Kli is just the Eibusher wants us to make it clean. Mashenkin by Ruchnis is different. By Ruchnis we cannot be talking that the Eibusher is going to take care of our Ruchnis. We cannot be talking that the Eibusher is going to make the mitzvahs happen on their own. Rather, we have to do the mitzvahs. But then the Cheves Olavav says that that after we do everything we can to do a mitzvah, we rely on Hashem that the mitzvah will be done. For example, we try to get the best sefer to write the tefillin, and we take it from there. The Eibusher will make sure that the tefillin will come in time. But what's interesting is that in this Sikha, the Rebbe asks a very important question, is that it's brought down that we need to have bitachon that even if a person did aveirus, Hashem is still going to take care of him. And l'chayr is a shaila. If a person does aveirus, the pashas that means that he's going to get punished. That's the whole idea of skar vaynish. So the Rebbe brings down from the Tzemach Tzedek the famous thing is trachgut v'tzayngut. That we have to have a machshava tova. We have to think that whatever situation we're in, the Eibusher is going to take care of us. And this applies even to Ruchnius. That in Ruchnius we have to believe trachgut v'tzayngut is that once we did our ishtadlus, we believe that the Eibusher is going to take care of the rest. And the Rebbe explains that Moshe Rabbeinu got punished because even though Hashem agar machet, we say Yaakov and things like that, even when there's chet, Hashem will still take care of us. So as I was learning this, I thought that there's something very practical we can take out of it, is that the Rebbe writes a very strong lashon over there. He says that why do things go wrong? Because a person didn't have bitachon. If something went wrong, it means you didn't have bitachon. If you would have 100% bitachon that this and this thing would work out, the business deal, the refuah, it would have worked out. So in Ruchnius, I think all of us understand this. In Ruchnius, all of us do whatever we can to let's say, learn something properly. And Hashem will take care. Listen, I try my best to keep up with Saita, and if I do it good, if not, then it must be the Eibusher, it must be I didn't work hard enough. But when it comes to a gashmistic thing, like let's say a person has a medical issue, chas v'shalom, and he has a lot of bitachon. He has bitachon that the Eibusher is going to take care of it. And Lo Aleinu, we have stories all the time, and with our current situation, we see as well that Lo Aleinu things don't go as planned. And sometimes we have bitachon and it doesn't work out. So either we can say taka that every single person that ever chas v'shalom lost someone to something or anything like that didn't have bitachon, or I think it could be medayik at the end of the sikha is that it's very difficult to say. Is that somehow whatever if once a person has full bitachon, then whatever happened is actually somehow part of the Eibusher's plan. So the Rebbe seems to write over there at the end of the sikha. So again, in Ruchnis it's easy to accept such a thing, that whatever happened is part of the Eibishter's plan. In Gashmis it's much more difficult, that this custom, let's say a baby, everyone's saying Tillim, and in the end, it doesn't work out. But somehow they're right, so we have to be tough, and even in such cases. I thought it's very interesting that I happened to come across this Sikha. I was learning finishing Sefer Ava, because this is the idea that only by learning about these idionim, we can learn about Ahavas Hashem. Only by learning about how the Eibishter is running the world and how everything, the essence for the good, that's how we can talk out Trachya V'Zayngut, and with Hashem that should help that everything should always be good.
I think that's scholar.
Shem Shem Kelayla, Nachat Sef Leila, Ksem Lebeim Sefer, Shlishi Vu Sefer Zmani, Chesed Vesel, V'Sidur, Chashav, Sefer Zayvin, Chashvis Asef, Chashvis Yamtef, Chatzcham Tzmat, Sefer Shefer, V'Sukkot Lulav, Hirchashkal, Chedish Chedish Time, Sefer Megil, V'Chanukah, Chashavas, Yishman Chamashvitz, Shem Tzosei, Shloshim Mesleisel, Verpotim, Shvit Shvi, Shalas Revelacha, Shleilan Shav, Shalas Skot Gum Shav, Shlekad Sheyem, Mischia, Vermeil, Vergalat, Shvis of Shvitlacha, Mitzvah Seish, Never Yem, Shvi, Tishbais, V'Chalois Malacha, Bit Mitzvah Seish. So we have a mitzvah say to keep Shabbos and a license say not to be mechal Shabbos. ומה אחד עושה מלאכה? אם עשה משהו מזל, then kind of cars. We must have made vasca and iskal. We must have kind of car and kind of skua if a person did a very good Shabbos.
Von dem schon Kirche, es war schon sein Nabes, der Kodesh, Beis und Dank.